Hello, today we are going to be reading the first half of the Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. As we read today, we are going to be annotating the text. To annotate means to underline and take notes on important details that you see in the text. These could be related to the overall feeling or the tone that the author gives, or the overall feeling that the author wants you to feel while reading. It could be related to the characters and their actions. It could be related to the narrator and their emotions that they're feeling, or it could be just summarizing on the side to help you have an idea of what's going on. So you might want to have a colored pencil or colored pen, marker, highlighter, something like that to help you. Or a pencil works just fine too. But as we read today, I want you to follow along and add the annotations to your copy of the story. This way, when you go back to do deeper analysis, you have those notes on the side, and you're able to use those notes to help you understand what was happening in the story, trace the character development, and cite evidence to support the inferences you're making. So I'm going to read you the story, or the first part of the story, and then we're going to go back and do some annotations. You can pause this video to have time to write down your annotations, or if you're watching as a class, your teacher can pause the video to give you some time. All right, so The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. Fortunato had hurt me 1,000 times, and I had suffered quietly. But then I learned he had laughed at my proud name, Montresor, the name of an old and honored family. I promised myself that I would make him pay for this, that I would have revenge. You must not suppose, however, that I spoke of this to anyone. I would make him pay, yes, but I would act only with the greatest care. I must not suffer as a result of taking my revenge. A wrong is not made right in that manner. And also, the wrong would not be made right unless Fortunato knew that he was paying and knew who was forcing him to pay. I gave Fortunato no cause to doubt me. I continued to smile in his face, and he did not understand that I was now smiling at the thought of what I had planned for him, at the thought of my revenge. Okay, we're going to pause for a minute, and we have learned a lot about our narrator. So, our narrator here is Montresor. We know that's his last name because it says the name of an old and honored family. And he wants something. We know his goal. So what is his goal? We can pause, take a minute and discuss it, or think about it. So hopefully the goal you discussed is that he wants revenge. And the person he wants revenge on is Fortunato. The reason he wants revenge on Fortunato is because he disrespected his family name. He said, Fortunato had hurt me 1,000 times, and I had suffered quietly. So the hurt he's talking about isn't physical. It's little put-downs or jabs, emotional jabs, like maybe, talking trash about him. And our narrator, Montresor, he let it slide. He suffered quietly. He didn't say anything, but now he went too far. He disrespected his proud name, and that warrants revenge. So that tells us a few things about our narrator. And let's go ahead and take some notes. It's always good to summarize what's going on, especially in a story that has a lot of levels to it. So we're going to go ahead and summarize the text. So we know that, there we go, Montresor we're just gonna abbreviate their names. Montresor wants revenge on Fortunato for disrespecting his family name for the last time. He took it too far. So, we also know that Fortunato, he injured his pride, his family name. So we know that Montresor is really proud of his family. So that's something to make note of. So I will adjust that. Okay, so you guys can write these in the margins so you can see it. So go ahead and take a minute, pause this video, and make sure you have your notes written down and everything underlined or highlighted that you need. Because when we underline and highlight, this is evidence. So here we have, okay, so if we were making the inference that Montresor is proud of his family, our evidence is right here. He's getting revenge because someone disrespected his family name. Okay, now that you've unpaused the video, we are going to move on a little further. So next we have Montresor, our narrator, going into more details about his revenge. He said, "You must not suppose, however, that I spoke of this to anyone." So he's keeping it a secret. So, oops, not a ruler. He's keeping it a secret. So he said, "I would make him pay, but I would only act with the greatest care. I must not suffer as a result of my revenge. A wrong is not made right in that manner, and also the wrong would not be made right unless Fortunato knew that he was paying, who was forcing him to pay." So this is important to know about how our narrator is exacting his revenge. So he has a couple stipulations for how his revenge works. He's been planning this carefully, so he's acting with the greatest care. So that's a note we can make, and that he is carefully planning. He's not acting out of, he's not reacting to the situation. He's taking a step back to do this instead of just reacting out of emotion and posting some tweet on social media about him to get revenge. He's taking a step back. He is going to plan this out meticulously so that we can see it. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Okay, so going to make a note on the side that he is planning this out meticulously. He's planning carefully, and I will make this so you guys can see it. Okay, and we'll write right here by our evidence so we know how to interpret that. We also want to note that for his revenge to work, he has a couple stipulations. One, he must not suffer. And two, Fortunato must know he's making him pay. So he doesn't want anyone to know, but Fortunato is eventually going to know who made him pay. Because if Fortunato doesn't know who's getting revenge, it's not worth it. And if our narrator gets caught, it's also not worth it. So those are his two stipulations for revenge to work. So we want to put revenge to be successful. Next, he talks about how he gave Fortunato no cause to doubt me. I continued to smile in his face, and he did not understand that I was now smiling at the thought of what I had planned for him, the thought of revenge. So here we see that Montresor is going to trick him. He is being a fake friend so that Fortunato trusts him. So even though he smiles when he sees them, he's not smiling because they're friends. He's smiling because he knows he's going to get revenge. Go ahead and make sure you have these notes down. Pause the video or have your teacher pause the video. And then we are going to read the second page and be done for the day. Okay, now that you've unpaused the video and have those notes, we're going to read the second page. And this is where we are going to see Fortunato and Montresor meet. But we're also going to learn a little bit more about Fortunato. Okay, so we are going to read. Fortunato was a strong man, a man to be feared. But he had one great weakness. He liked to drink good wine, and indeed, he drank much of it. So he knew a lot about fine wines, and proudly believed that he was trained to judge them. I too knew of old wines well, and bought the best I could find. And wine, I thought, wine would give me my revenge. It was almost dark, one evening in the spring, when I met Fortunato in the street alone. He spoke to me more warmly than was usual, for already he had drunk more wine than was good for him. I acted pleased to see him, and I shook his hand, as if he had been my closest friend. Fortunato, how are you? Montresor, good evening, my friend. My dear Fortunato, I am indeed glad that I have met you. I was just thinking of you, for I have been tasting my new wine. I have bought a full cask of fine wine, which they tell me is Amontillado. But Amontillado? Quite impossible. I know, it does not seem possible. As I could not find you, I was just going to talk to Lucchesi. If anyone understands wine, it is Lucchesi. He will tell me, Lucchesi? He does not know the one fine wine from another. But they say he knows as much about fine wines as you know. Ugh, come, let us go. Go where? To your vaults, to taste the wine. No, my friend, no. I can see that you are not well, and the vaults are cold and wet. I do not care. Let us go. I'm well enough. The cold is nothing. Amontillado, someone is playing games with you. And Lucchesi, ha! Lucchesi knows nothing about wines. Nothing at all. As he spoke, Fortunato took my arm, and I allowed him to hurry me to my great stone palace, where my family, the Montresors, had lived for centuries. There was no one at home. I had told the servants that they must not leave the palace, as I would not return until the following morning, and they must care for the place. This, I knew, was enough to make it certain that they would all leave as soon as my back was turned. I took down from their palace places on the wall 2 brightly burning lights. I gave one of those to Fortunato and led him to a wide doorway. There we could see the stone steps going down into the darkness. Okay, we are going to pause from reading, and we learned a lot of information here. We learned about Fortunato's greatest weakness, that we know that Montresor is taking advantage of. So that's something we want to highlight. His greatest weakness. He liked to drink good wine, and he drank much of it. So he knew a lot about wines and proudly believed that he was trained to judge. Wine, I thought, would give me my revenge. So we learn that Fortunato's weakness is wine, right? But it's not just that he drinks a lot of wine, which is usually an assumption. There is more to just him drinking it. Okay. He also, scroll, has something else that, it's not just that he drinks a lot, there's another weakness he has. So go ahead and take a minute and pause the video and think about or talk about what else is his weakness when it comes to wine. It's not just that he drinks a lot of it, there's something else. Okay, now that you've unpaused the video, hopefully you discussed that it's not just he drinks a lot of wine, he has to be an expert. So it says he probably believed that he was the judge of them. So we can make a note of that because as we read, that plays a role. So he drinks wine and has to prove he is a wine expert. Montresor knew that if he needed someone to judge a type of wine for him, Fortunato couldn't say no. And that was a big hobby, and it is still a big hobby in Italy, being able to judge a wine by its taste or look. You can tell what year it is, how expensive it is, things like that. And so that is something that Fortunato prided himself on and needs to prove that he is the best. And as we just saw, Montresor took advantage of that. So go ahead and pause the video, make sure you have things highlighted and written down, and then we'll continue taking notes on the second page. Okay, hopefully now that you took some notes, let's take back at, look at the second. So again, we know that this wine is going to be what gives him his revenge, using this wine. And he did. We see that Fortunato is kind of under the influence of alcohol. He said he had drunk more wine than was good for him. So that means Fortunato is most likely not super aware of his surroundings, and he's easily influenced because he has too much alcohol in his system. So that he acted pleased to see him. He shook his hand as if he was my closest friend. So we know that Montresor is being fake again. He is pretending to be nice to Fortunato to gain his trust. And in the end, he tricks him into coming to his house. He tricks him by bringing up this Lucchese. So we know he does this to make it seem like it's Fortunato's idea to come to his house. Because if he said, "Oh, Fortunato, that's fine. I don't need your help. I'll just ask Lucchese." He knows as much about wines as you do. That is a trigger for Fortunato. He has to now prove that, oh no, I'm better than Lucchese. So this is what we call reverse psychology, where Montresor tricked Fortunato into thinking it was his idea to come to his house. It's called, so that, he wouldn't have to force him to come. Fortunato has invited himself over. He appealed to his ego. So go ahead and you can pause the video to make sure you have these notes down. If you don't, we'll kind of make sure you things have highlighted and written down, and then unpause the video when you're ready. now that you have those notes, we see that again further down, he was again just trying to show us, oh no, you're sick, it's fine. And no, Fortunato was insisting to go, and Montresor did the same thing with his servants, where he was very tricky. He said, hey guys, I'm going to be out. You need to stay here all night to watch my house, knowing that they'd leave. He didn't want anyone there. So again, he used that reverse psychology to make sure they were alone. So I wanted to make sure he and Fortunato were alone at his house. And we end seeing them go down into the darkness. So kind of an ominous cliffhanger of what's going to happen next. So go ahead and take your notes on your paper. You can pause and do that. And when you are done, make sure that you hold on to this paper. You will turn it in your pictures of your annotations today. And then afterwards, we're going to do part 2 next week, where we'll read the last half of the story and annotate. So do not lose this copy of your paper. Take photos of your annotations and turn it in. If you do not have an iPad, use a friend's to turn it in, or give it to your teacher to put into the collection folder and hang on to for you. I hope you enjoyed this reading and are excited to hear what happens next.